Ellipse Basics 2. At number 1, one of the first things when you're trying to find out some parts of the ellipse is to identify A, B, and C and the center. Since this equation is pretty much already written out in the correct format, then it's just a matter of us reading the equation. And I've got the formula down at the bottom. You can see that down here. I've picked, since A is bigger and it's under X, we're going to be using the horizontal major axis, right? So A is always the larger value. Always remember this. And if I can go down, I can just take the square roots of those values. I can get A is 14, B is 11. Then, of course, I can use A squared minus B squared equals C squared. That is a little different format, so don't let that confuse you with what I'm using here. I've got it equal to C squared. So once you find these things, it's a matter of just plugging them all in. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use these formulas to find out my vertices, co-vertices, and my foci. Center is always easy. It's just like everything we've done so far. It's just going to be 0 and then -2. You see that right there. Or 0, +2, excuse me. And then here, I'm taking these formulas just from here, right? I've also written down the Co Vertex formula, which isn't listed here, so make sure you get that down if you haven't already. All right, now, if I have H, K, and A, B, and C, like I have here, here, and here, then writing the symbols out here is a really easy task. It's just I've got to be organized and I've got to be clear. I have to know what it is I'm doing. I'm not going too fast. I'm making sure to look at the right formulas, pick the right ones out. Always remember this, that A always finds vertices, and B always finds co-vertices, and C always finds the foci. The foci is usually a square root most of the time. And so notice how I've written that here. I just kind of went down and added and subtracted it to my coordinate from the center and left it as the radical. Totally welcome to do that. Then use process elimination to get the right answer. Okay. Let me find a place to put this. I will put it right there for a minute. Okay. Number 2. I can look up here. I can see A is underneath Y this time, so I'm going to have a vertical major axis. That's one of the first things I determine which formula I'm going to be using. Which way does the major axis run? Remember, major axis is the longer axis. It's the one that A goes with. And major axis is always 2A long. The minor axis is always 2B long. So the first thing we do is identify those parts that are easy to see. The center, and then A, and then B. So A is going to be the square root of 196, that's 14. B is the square root of 169, that's going to give you 13. Now I can go ahead and go straight to finding my vertices and my co-vertices. Now I'm taking the longer approach. I'm doing everything. I know that you can pretty much find the center and the vertices in a lot of these questions, like especially with multiple choice, and you can go straight to the answer. Be careful. Not all of them are going to be multiple choice, especially when I ask you to graph it and there's no multiple choice at all, like on the next page. So I'm kind of giving you some setup on how to get the parts. Once I get the parts, I can work backwards and graph it the same way. And so I'm using the formulas from last time, right? Just the vertices and co-vertices, and I'm just simply filling those values in as we go along. My C I haven't found yet, so I'm going to have to do that real quick. Remember, I'm going to go back up here, 196 minus 169, and then I'll take the square root of that. Here again, C typically isn't a whole number, right? So C squared is 27. That's 9 times 27, so it's going to end up giving me 3 square roots of 3. I can estimate that, especially if I'm going to be graphing something like this, like on the next page, I'm going to make this a decimal just to give myself a good idea of how big it is. And so, let me get rid of all this stuff. Let me just delete it. Get it out of the way here, and I'll get those 2 things over. Now, let's look at the answers. I'm going to find my center, -4, +3. And I can definitely figure that down to be, I was looking at the vertices in the center, and D turned out to be the answer. Hopefully there's no questions on that. Let's go and look at the second page. Let's graph a few of these. These are kind of set up to be relatively easy. Although this, if you can get the concepts here for graphing, the process of graphing doesn't get any more complicated than what we're doing right now. You might have uglier numbers, but the process remains the same. In this example, we go straight into finding A, B, and C. And so this one's going to have a horizontal major axis because it's going to be running like the x-axis because 49 is under x squared. So I'm going to go ahead and graph the center first, and then I'll use A to go left and right to find my vertices, and I'll use B to go up and down to find the co-vertices. Remember that A always runs in the same direction as my major axis does. So we're going to go left and right 7 from the center point. So we're going to take this value here. I'm going to move 7 this way. And so I'll mark that off on the x-axis here. And typically what I'm doing here is I'm actually, rather than using my formulas from before, I'm just counting, right? If I went over 7, then I was at 0. Over 7 would be 7. I'm still at -2 values here, right? And then to find the other vertex, I'm going to go the other direction 7 steps. So I'm going to mark 7 off here, put that down, and then I can actually label that coordinate here. So to be really clear, when I'm graphing this, at no time at all do I ever look at the formula sheet. The one thing I remember is that A goes with vertices, B goes with co-vertices, and C is going to go with my foci. If I remember those things, I find graphing it much easier to do than what we did previously. It's a lot less work. It's just basically counting. I went up 5 units to get to this value. I'm going to go down 5 units to get to this one. I'm just using B to find my 2 co-vertices. And then I'll go ahead, I'll draw my ellipse in. I usually put the foci in at the very end. Do your best job to draw these things out. Sometimes they're a little not elliptical, but you know what? That's okay. We're going to take, now this is one of the reasons why I take the radical here. If I were just going to write the coordinates, I would leave it as 2 squared root of 6, and I just wouldn't worry about it. But we're going to go ahead, I need this number to know how far I'm actually going to do it. But notice I write the coordinate down with the radical. This was easy. I didn't really have to worry about it because it was 0 plus that thing, 0 minus that thing. So that made this relatively easy. But I went ahead and put the coordinates in here and used 4.9 to actually figure out the spot on the major axis that we're going to go. Right? So just kind of FYI, this is 14 units long, the major axis, and the minor axis is 10 units long because it's 2A and 2B. Number 4. Here we have a vertical major axis, right? It's under the y, so it's going to run like the y-axis. A is going to be the square root of 16. B is going to be the square root of 9. Remember, A and B can swap places. A is always the larger of the two. And then we find C, turns out to be about 2.6. I'm going to plot my center at 0, 2. I'm going to go up 4 units and down 4 units to get my vertices. I'm going to use B to go left 3 and right 3. Notice in this example, I'm not really writing the coordinates down. I'm showing you kind of 2 ways to write your solutions. In this previous example, I wrote all the coordinates down on the actual graph. Sometimes that's easy. You have a nice big graph. This one's a little bit cramped to write all of that inside of it. So I'm just simply going to make a list of the vertices, the co-vertices, and the foci off to the side. And I'll be clear that if your coordinates written, if your graph is a little sloppy, but generally in the right place, but you can provide me with the absolutely correct coordinates, then I will override the messy graph with the correct coordinates and give you some credit for that, or full credit for that. And so here I've already labeled everything except for the foci, so I'm writing down my vertices. I used A to get those, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to figure out the co-vertices, or not the co-vertices, but the foci. Needed to erase that a little bit. We're going to use 2.6, and remember the foci always go up and down. Well, not, in this example, like the major axis, they always go with the major axis. So I'm going to use the 2.6 to go up 2.6 and down 2.6. Co-vertices coordinates is going to be 3, positive 2 for this one. No, for this one. And negative 3, positive 2 for that one. I'm going to go up 1, 2, and a little bit, and about a half. I'm going to go down 1, 2, and about a half to get my foci. I'm going to go back to the square root of 7 here. I'm going to write 0, 2, plus and minus the square root of 7 as my coordinates. And you're welcome to do that. Okay? I'm going to kind of take it and just speed up the rest of these. They're pretty much the same thing as before. If you guys have any questions, please take a chance. Please take the time and send me an email.